Hey everyone, I'm a few weeks along now on my journey to becoming a game developer, and I wanted to share a few things I've learned while creating my first little arcade game. Well, technically it's my second game, but I don't want to count the first one since it's just a Flappy Bird copy I copied off of a YouTube tutorial. The first thing I learned was to really drastically decrease the scope of any game I wanted to make at my current noob level. One of the first game ideas I had in my head was a game about a lumberjack who goes off into the woods to live a simpler life. This may have come to me since it's currently midwinter in Canada, and I was just watching the ad to that winter survival mobile game that keeps popping up everywhere I look. This game would have the ability to hunt and gather resources, do some base building like log cabins and shit, and have some sort of horror action element during the night. It didn't seem like the most complicated thing to build in my head at the time, but I quickly realized how little I knew. Like how many different systems I would have to implement, such as resource gathering, inventory management, base building, day-night cycles, action game mechanics, and the list only seemed to grow. This led me to rethinking how I want to approach game dev in general. What if I instead built multiple small games that only implemented one of these systems in order to learn them in isolation, before even thinking about combining them? This led me to the first real game I have started building, a super simple 2D top-down shooter, where the only player actions are walk and shoot, with enemies randomly spawning around the player at different intervals, with their only mechanic being to constantly follow the player. This may seem ultra simple, but let me tell you what I learned in the process. I started writing my player movement script, then I noticed that when I played the game, the player kept moving slightly quicker in the diagonal directions. This was bugging the shit out of me, so I learned about something called vector normalization in order for the player to move at a constant speed in all directions. Much better. Next, one of the more daunting things to me about game dev was the art, as I had no experience doing this. I had previous coding experience and have a bit of a background in music as well, so the other aspects of game dev felt more familiar to me, but yeah, the art was definitely worrying me. I decided to use Aseprite because I figured pixel art isn't a bad place to start. I know it can get complex, but you can also easily make cute little mushrooms like this. Anyways, as I got more familiar with Aseprite, and learned how to create simple sprites and sprite animations, I finally made this little guy. And honestly, I was pretty proud of this little nameless gnome, along with the gnome's worst enemy, aka the lawnmower. To add on to the challenge of art and art design, I had to learn what tilesets are, and how they can be used to easily create a level layout. This honestly took me way longer to figure out than I'd like to admit, but eventually I got something drawing on the screen that definitely looked like someone had the Hirsch squirts and shit some kind of green shit onto the screen, but hey, at least I have animated water. When I started to work on the shooting part of the game, I kept thinking about how cool it would be to have some sort of light or particle animation be a part of the projectile weapon itself. So I googled particles in Godot. I feel like this could end up being a deep and perhaps dark rabbit hole I was diving into, but I don't care, man, that stuff looks so cool. Anyways, this is how far I got. And after taking time to figure out about how to have it shoot out in the same direction as my mouse, and from the orb weapon thing itself, I finally got this. Whoosh. The final thing I was able to complete was getting the lawnmowers to randomly spawn on the grass tiles on my map. I tried for what felt like hours to easily find a way to calculate the end of the player's camera and to make it so that the lawnmowers spawn outside of that region. But I couldn't figure out how to get it to only spawn the grass tiles and not the water tiles, which would also screw up the game since both were on the same collider level. I eventually settled with this messy ass solution of manually drawing a path back and forth along the grass tile map until I covered it all, and then made the enemy spawn at a random location on the path if the position was at least a certain distance from the player. Someone please let me know if there's a better way to do this. Anyways, that's the current progress I've made so far after about 2 weeks of game dev, alongside my full-time job. The next things I plan to add to the game is perhaps a game over screen, a health bar, a dash mechanic, maybe a difficulty curve, and just for fun, see what would happen if I added a 2D light node to the particle weapon. Other than that, I could dip my toes into another game system, and add something like an inventory system for the player or procedurally generated tile maps. But yeah, if you have any tips or want to share your experience learning game dev, please feel free to do so in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more content, then I'd greatly appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.